Today on the Playbook podcast, it happened while you were sleeping. The federal government has shut down. We'll tell you what's coming next. Also, overnight, a new tranche of Trump tariffs kicked in. We'll have the latest on that. And another American city faces the military coming in today. Hello, I am Jack Blanchard.
And I'm Dasha Burns. It is Wednesday, October 1st.
And this is the Playbook podcast. I can't believe it's October
Oh,
already,
it's October.
Dasha. It feels
It's
like
October.
yesterday that Trump was being inaugurated and we were looking ahead to this
And
historic
we're
presidency.
10 years older.
We're 10 years older,
It's
indeed.
amazing.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much going on, Dasha. Let's get into it. The government has shut down. If you're listening to this morning and you're a federal worker or you've got family or close friends who are federal workers, you will be listening to this with a heavy heart. I know hundreds of thousands of workers are expected to be furloughed. Others will be asked to work on no pay. They say you always remember your first shutdown. Well, this is mine.
Welcome to our American government, Jack.
Thank you, indeed. Are you surprised it's come to this point, or do you think it was always coming to this point? Given
No,
I
think anyone who's been watching it predicted this actually many months ago. The White House's posture has been, we don't want to shut the government down, but if the government shut down, we feel like we can just blame Democrats for it. So we talked about this, yesterday. We will keep talking about it. It's going to be a messaging war. It's going to be a blame game. But meanwhile, there are real people and real lives in the crosshairs here. The thing about this White House, though, is they are not concerned about federal workers here. They think that most Americans, certainly their voter base, doesn't worry about federal workers losing their jobs. In fact, some of them cheer for it. I was looking back at some of our coverage of Russ Vogt, and there was a story about how he, wanted to, quote, inflict trauma on the federal workforce. So this is very much in line with this administration's MO. The question just is, how long is this going to last?
I think you're totally right. It's worth remembering that last one, which I'm sure people listening to this will remember, of course, during Trump's first term, was the longest ever, 35 days. And I think that's worth bearing in mind. We have a president who has the stomach to go long on this, right?
And I think their pain threshold is even higher now, and they are betting that they have a stronger stomach for it than the Democrats do.
How long it's going to last, who's going to get blamed, and what is going to happen to the US government in the meantime? Those, for me, are the three big questions that we need to be asking this morning. And it's far from clear, frankly, what the answers are for any of them. But on the length, I have to say, it feels like it could go long. As you say, they've got the stomach for it, Dasha, but also, the Democrats, all the motivation for them is to go long on this. There's no point in shutting down the government for a day if you want to be seen to be standing up to Trump, because all your supporters are going to say is, oh, they just folded after 24 hours or 48 hours or even 3 or 4 days. That doesn't look like the tough messaging that they want to be sending out.
That's the thing. Voters that tend to vote Democrat or are interested in voting Democrat or don't like Trump have signaled to the Democratic Party time and again that they want to see more fight in them. They want to see some spine, and that is echoing in the ears of everyone who's just been in their districts over the summer. I could really see this being a serious standoff. Now, there are others on the left that are really concerned about the pain that this administration could inflict on programs that they care about, on workers that they care about, they know that this could do real damage, and whether that's a messaging fight that they might lose, and or an actual set of issues that Democrats care about that get severely impacted by this. Like, both of those are real concerns. So it's a really tough spot. And at the end of the day, I mean, a shutdown is never good for the American people, however you slice it.
It's worth just before we get onto the sort of blame game bit of it, just while we're on the length of the shutdown, it's worth bearing in mind, I think, that there is a possible exit for this that doesn't involve some sort of deal or some sort of formal fold. We had a vote last night in the Senate that Senate Majority Leader John Thune called. He got 3 Democratic rebels on board last night, plus an independent Angus King, who caucuses with the Dems. There is a strategy within the GOP Hill set, which is like, look, we only need a small number of rebels to get this done. Can we keep increasing the pressure on certain senators, or even maybe cutting little deals with certain senators? Who knows? Could they keep going at this and going this and finding that people start to crumble and people start to fold and they get it done that way, rather than a deal with Chuck Schumer?
Well, and part of the strategy between Republicans on the Hill and the White House is they are planning to make Democrats vote on this time and time and time again, either to break some people off and or to make it as painful for Democrats as possible to keep showing the American people that, Democrats are the party standing in the way here, even if Democrats are trying to present themselves, on the other hand, as the ones, fighting and standing up to the administration. They're going to put this on display as much as possible.
The big question in terms of people folding or one side folding or a deal getting done in the end is like, who's feeling the pressure the most? And a
Hmm.
lot of that will come down to this messaging war we were talking about yesterday, right? Republicans perfectly reasonably can say, look, we have passed a very simple funding bill to extend this in the House. All the Dems need to do is back it like they have many times before, and the government will stay open or now reopen. Equally, there's a reasonable case for the Democrats to make to the public to say, look, they've got the White House. They've got both branches of Congress. All of this chaos and shutdown, they can't even keep the government open. This is on them, and you should be blaming the president of the United States. And you could see that message could work as well. The other thing that might or probably will increase pressure on the Democratic Party is what the Trump administration do to the federal government while the doors are closed, right?
This is where Mr. Russ Vote comes in.
This is where Mr. Roosevelt came in. Politico had that important scoop last week, a memo from Roosevelt's office saying, preparing the ground apparently for the mass firing of federal workers while the government is shut down, were that to happen.
And let's remember, Russ Vote has wanted to change the makeup and shrink the makeup of the federal government for a very long time. Since Trump's first administration, he spent the 4 years that the president was out of office crafting plans, much of what was talked about on the campaign trail by Democrats, actually, when they were trying to make Project 2025 the boogeyman. Russ Vote is behind and is the architect of a lot of those ideas. And this is something he's been waiting to sink his teeth into, a shutdown that gives him the time and the space and the excuse, really, to just slash and not bring back. That's a moment he has been waiting for to take advantage of. People think Elon Musk with the chainsaw was a lot. Like Russ Vote is that, but on steroids and really much more effective because he knows where all the levers actually are. He knows exactly what he wants to cut. He knows how to do it. He's much more versed in how the government works and what exactly he wants to change than Musk ever was.
That's the other thing we need to be watching out for today and through this week is, are they going to start enacting some of these plans and threats? Is that actually going to happen? And if they do, that I would say will put further pressure on Democrats to say, do you really want to keep this shutdown going when you see what is happening to the federal government?
For us, Vote, it's a win-win either way, because either he pressures Democrats with it and they cave, or they prolong it and he's able to do more of the work that he's been trying to do.
There are other things going on as well as the government shutdown, although of course that is going to dominate the headlines today and indeed for probably as long as it goes on for. But new tariffs came into effect overnight, Dasha. These are the 100% tariffs on pharmaceuticals or branded pharmaceuticals that Donald Trump announced a few days ago. 100% tariff is obviously massive, but it comes now after that big deal we saw agreed with the pharmaceutical firm Pfizer yesterday in the White House. You've got the inside track on that. Just give us an idea of how important that was and how it was done.
Yeah, so I got a chance to speak with Chris Klom of HHS. He was the one negotiating. He was leading negotiations with Pfizer on this. He's leading negotiations with other pharmaceutical companies that are next in line here. Trump has been obsessed with this thing called most favored nations drug pricing for a really long time. He wanted to change this in his first term, and now he's really trying to do it in his second term.
Just explain for our listeners what that is.
Yeah, so So basically, there are other countries across the world, particularly wealthier European nations, that pay a lot less for the same pharmaceutical drugs that we do here in the U.S. And Trump has thought this was really unfair. We his argument is, we fund all of this research, we are getting taken advantage of. They're spiking the prices on us and giving the rest of the world a break. So he wants to right size this. And Pfizer is the first pharmaceutical company to make a deal with this administration. In return, they're not going to get tariffed for at least 3 years. They are also investing some $70 billion in manufacturing here in the United States. And they are, on paper as of now, going to do most favored nation pricing for Medicaid, which is important. And Pfizer has agreed to basically lower the cost of drugs here in the U.S. and put a bunch of them on Trump RX, which is going to be a direct to consumer online pharmacy, basically, with they say lower prices than what you would get anywhere else, and they will work to cut prices down to what other countries are paying. Now, there's some skepticism around this from some folks about the devil is really in the details. How soon will consumers pay less? How much less will consumers pay? People that are on Medicaid already pay very little or nothing out of pocket. The Trump administration and Chris Klom say it's going to significantly cut costs for states and for taxpayers and make Medicaid more sustainable. And for people that are paying out of pocket, their drug costs are going to come down. This is with Pfizer. That is not going to go into effect until 2026 because they say it's complicated and there's a lot to work out, and that's understandable. Again, we'll have to see how this actually plays out. This has never been done before, which is something the administration is touting, but of course might make things a little bit more complicated. They are in talks with other companies right now, like Eli Lilly. They're negotiating these deals basically one pharmaceutical company at a time right now. They're going to be using Pfizer as a model and hope to make a bunch of announcements soon. Again, this is something that President Trump has been obsessed with. I remember when I interviewed Dr. Oz earlier this year, he said that's the thing that he gets calls about almost every day from the president. So they're touting this as a really big deal, and it's something that Democrats could get on board with. But the skepticism is about the details here and how this is actually implemented.
On the face of it, though, it feels like a pretty big win for the president. This is the sort of populist measure that people really like across the board, right? And it is a fact that America's been paying far more for some of these drugs than countries like the UK, which people in America will rightly feel that's unfair, right? So if the
Yeah.
president can use his bully pulpit and his threats of tariffs and whatever else to make it happen, then I
No,
think
that's exactly right. And their idea is to get companies use the carrot and use the stick and get companies to do this voluntarily. I asked why not, go through Congress and do legislation, and they basically said, well, Congress hasn't done it, right? So, and look at how little it's possible to get done on the Hill. So they want to do it their way. It's an unconventional way, but a lot of people are sick and tired of paying so much for drugs.
we must just talk about military matters before we finish, Dasha, because today's the day that the National Guard go into Memphis, another American city, slightly different to the incursions into DC and into Los Angeles that we've already seen, in the sense that this was requested and wanted by local Republican leaders. It could be it's the third of the sort of Trump military incursions, if you like, but certainly not the last. We're expecting Portland could happen this week. We're expecting Chicago could happen any day now. This is obviously a big theme now of the second half of this year, and it comes after, Dasha, we saw this extraordinary speech that Donald Trump gave yesterday to all those generals that Pete Hegseth had summoned in Virginia, and I think we should just briefly talk about that because. Sort of Hegseth's top lines got a lot of the attention, right? He was talking about how generals mustn't be too fat and, very colorful, no more woke military and all that stuff. And I understand why that gets headlines, and it is interesting and sort of vaguely amusing in some ways. But I think much more important, it was the language the president was using to all these generals when he started talking about an invasion from within in America. He was going after some of these Democrat run cities, and he said, Quote, we should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military. That is the way the president is thinking about these
Yeah.
incursions. And that, I don't think we've ever heard an American president say anything like that to his generals before.
No, no, and what was remarkable about the whole scene is it was very much a campaign rally style speech in a setting that was anything but a campaign rally. These are top military leaders in the most militarily powerful country in the world. So those words with that backdrop was really stunning.
Yeah, and Trump was sort of issuing veiled or not so veiled threats to them, and Hegseth was saying, if you don't get on board with what we're saying, then, don't expect to get advanced and maybe you should be looking for a new job. And then with the next breath, Trump is saying, telling his generals, we're under invasion from within. It's no different than a foreign enemy. Um, so I just want to draw attention that not because it's likely to play out as another big story today, but I just think it's really important that people are monitoring the way the president is talking to the most senior people in his military at the moment. Um,
Well, and we're clearly going to see more cities
mm,
have to deal with this, whether they want it or not.
exactly. Before we go, late last night, we heard some comments from another important American, Dasha, the Pope. I've been wondering when the Pope might wade into American politics, and he appears to have finally done it last night,
I
which
keep
is
forgetting that the Pope is American.
we're paying attention this morning, Pope Leo, because he was getting asked about a slightly obscure issue, which is there's a senator in Illinois, Dick Durbin, who's supposed to be getting an award for something, and Pope Leo, who, as we know, is from Chicago, got asked about this, and he started talking about it. And then he said this: someone who said he started talking about whether people are pro-life or not, and the Pope said, "Someone who says I'm against abortion but is in favor of the death penalty is not really pro-life." The Pope said, "Someone who says I'm against abortion but I'm in agreement with the inhuman treat in." Sorry, let me say that again. The Pope then said, "Someone who says I'm against abortion but I'm in agreement with the inhuman treatment of immigrants in the United States. I don't know if that's pro-life." These are very complex issues, and he carries on talking. But you've got an American Pope, the first ever American Pope there, saying that
Well,
people who think immigrants being treated inhumanly is okay, they're not pro-life. Well, that is quite a big political statement for an American Pope to say in this
it
context.
is, and I imagine it might be something we will hear from Vice President JD Vance about, given his visits to the Vatican and his beliefs when it comes to faith and abortion. So he's wading into one of the bigger wedge issues between with abortion and immigration in American politics. It's fascinating that this is one of the first sort of big political statements that he's made.
He is, and I think it's fair to say will create plenty of debate, and I'm sure we'll hear some of the Trump administration being asked about his comments. All right, that's all we've got time for today. Thanks so much for being here, Dasha. That's all we've got time for, but we do have more news and analysis in today's Playbook newsletter, which you can find at politico.com/playbook. And as always, we shall be back tomorrow.
Thanks for listening.